What's the story? What has to happen in this scene for the story to move forward? What brings the actors to life, including me? And is it fun to play, even if the scene is devastating on some level? Those questions are the same no matter the format in my experience. I think I have a generational love of movies. I don't know about when you say screens, it conjures a whole other thing, but my father was born in Los Angeles, raised here going to movies. He lost his mother very young, and he said he sort of, like going to the movies on Hollywood Boulevard became his family, his mother, you know. Errol Flynn, they used to talk about. And then he wrote a song about Errol Flynn. So I grew up, my version of it was I Love Lucy, and I Love Lucy, and I Love Lucy, and I Love Lucy. And it's funny, my mother always used to say, "You're watching too much of that show." Or not so much that show, but I should be off getting ready for whatever my career's gonna be. And then when I ended up doing Mad About You, I thought, well, here I am playing a married couple in New York City, you know, practically doing the chocolate thing and the ballet class, or my, you know, impression of it. So TV from that era made a big difference to me. I don't think I ever had a directing bug. My father was a director of the theater, and so I would go with him to rehearsal. And he took me to a ton of plays when I was very young. We lived in New York City. All I knew is I wanted to be in that room. I didn't say I want to be acting. I didn't say I want to be directing. I just wanted to be around these people who were together, laughing, enjoying each other, and telling a story together. That was heaven for me. Then I studied dance and studied acting because my, you know, cousin did. It was really not some big, deep wish. I was 9 years old and just went on Saturdays, but I really liked it. And then I asked my teacher if I could stay for the adult class, and then an agent came in, and then I got a part, and I turned around and I was on a movie set. But it was the same feeling. We're all in it together. We're telling this story. I want to be there.
I met Helen quite by accident, but at the perfect time. I was still writing the Mad About You pilot, and I didn't really have an actress in mind. And my wife and Helen had a mutual friend, and they threw a dinner party, about 10 people, and we were there. It was Helen, and her dad was there. And I just thought Helen was so funny and charming and smart and warm and just terrific. And as we were leaving, I sort of half jokingly said to my wife, I said, what do you think about her as you? And she said, oh, she'd be great. And so then when the pilot was written, I called her up and I said, I don't want to be another guy who, please read my script, but boy, you'd be great. And I remember she really did not want to do television. She was just really taking off in films. But she was courteous enough to read it and then said, oh, I think I like this, now what?
It was called the Untitled Paul Reiser Project, and I just assumed, like most things, this was going to be about him and I would be his wife. But they had it, from the beginning, really written to people. And it wasn't necessarily that she was the neurotic one and he was they kept switching, which I think is like real life as I've experienced it. So it was a great job.
Her father was a great director and theater teacher, coach. She had the language of communicating. And so I Mad About You was the first time she had directed, and it made perfect sense. I think it was the 6th or 7th season. And she was ready to do it and wanted to do it. I said, well, do it, do one of these. I think the first episode she did we had Sidney Pollack was in the cast playing a shrink.
Hey, hi, how are you? Sit down, relax. Did you eat? I got Zabars.
No, thank you very much. I try not to eat before I'm going to spill my guts.
Come on. Dive in.
I'm wildly too nervous to eat.
Don't be nervous. Let me see if I can scare up a pit.
Okay.
And I realized, what kind of idiot
Very much.
tells Sidney Pollack, where to go and how to talk her first time out.
It's just a question of who clicks with whom, Besides, the point is you did the right thing.
Okay, good. I'll have a bagel.
Great. All right, let's go to work.
But he was interested. He wasn't busy telling stories about his brilliance on movie sets. He said he didn't know about four-camera work, so he was asking me and all of us questions. How's that working? And I thought, that's the thing, is to be curious. He was curious. The first day of when we had cameras on the set of the first episode I directed, there's 4 cameras, and I made a joke, all 4 cameras are on me. So I just tried to lighten up the atmosphere a little bit. It might have been annoying for Paul, I don't know. Probably he paid the biggest price because he didn't have his person. When we would take a break during the days when the director's working out the camera stuff, he and I would go run lines. Well, suddenly I was busy working out the camera stuff. But there was so much goodwill. We all were rooting for each other. I do think if it was annoying to have me do both jobs, hopefully it was helpful that he really trusted my sensibility. So hopefully I was directing scenes and actors and him in a way that, he felt good about.
When you do a multi-camera sitcom like Mad About You, it is a bit of a hybrid. It's a stage show because there are people there, but you're watching it in your home, and you want it to feel, above all, real. And that was always our #1 rule.
By the time you get to shooting in front of an audience, you've had run-throughs where it was either funny or it wasn't, But even on a TV show or a film where there's no audience, you have that first time in front of the crew. You do have one chance when the crew has got their coffee and they know the characters by now, and you do something and then you have to remember that after lunch when everybody's sick of it and it's not funny anymore. It was funny once. So that's part of the art of it, I think, pushing the reset button and jumping in again on take 20. Well, we knew that the end was coming for Mad About You, and we just, once again, didn't want it to suck. That was the bar. Please don't let this be stupid. Someone had the idea of going into the future to see how things turned out and filling things in. I don't even know, but what I was grateful for is that it was a real idea that needed a lot of work. It was more like a movie than an episode. I, especially as the director, got to focus on something rather than, just walking around weepy that it was going to end. So there was a last shot of us dancing, with a big slow camera thing. And, I could feel this is a moment, in my life. The ending was a combination of some 16, some Super 8, and I don't even know what else. We didn't have phones yet to film things on. You turn around. We shot in my dad's pool. We shot at a beach house Paul had. We shot in the woods because I wanted it to be a montage, and that's an example of how do you... Now, here's what I now know about a montage. You need to shoot 1 billion different shots. You need to not get precious about each one, but just keep shooting, 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 because they go by so quickly. So the fact that we, these ideas just started building on each other distracted us from being sad and scared about ending something that was, 7 years of our life and meant a lot to us.
Thank you for a wonderful engagement.
It has been my pleasure.
When we did the revisit 2 years ago, Helen directed the pilot, which made all the sense in the world. She has directed shows that are broad, and she's also done shows that are mildly funny. They're more, drama with comedy. And her movies, were both so emotional and heartbreaking and serious, but peppered with silly, funny, big laughs. So she knows how to get them, how to pace them, how to edit them. You know, there's nothing she can't do.
When I did Then She Found Me, I thought for sure the first movie I wrote I would not be in, and then I actually had lunch with a very good actor-director who had been in his own movies, and he said, there will be one person in the movie who sees it the way you do. You know how you want to say it. You know what the scene's about. You know what your character has to contribute in order to make the next scene make sense. So in that sense, it's a smart thing to do, to put yourself in it.
And you sleep afterwards when
You sleep
done.
later. Yeah. When I begin the pre-production process, I don't have such a, encyclopedia of film in my head that I know exactly what everything's going to look like, but I love the collaboration with a good DP.
I'll tell you precisely where she went.
The DP and I watched Kramer versus Kramer. There's a lot of beautifully composed, locked off pictures. And, Dustin Hoffman comes out of the room, goes to the bathroom, he leaves, the boy comes in, goes to the bathroom.
Just you and me.
Or maybe it was my instinct, but he agreed immediately and then took it so much farther because he was so brilliant. So that inspired us.
Are you here? Where are you?
I'm in here.
I mean, I know this first one, and Then She Found Me, this was the complete Kramer versus Kramer homage, that we would just have the camera here and she would come home and he would come out and she comes around and reappears. So that's what that was.
Hi.
Sit down.
You stand up.
Sweetie, please sit down.
This is Ride, yeah. Same thing, actually, same thing. And we knew it was going to dissolve into years later and toys would be missing, and that would tell us something about what she's been through. I look at a lot of paintings and I look at a lot of movies, and I couldn't teach a class in it, but I know when I look at a frame and I go, shouldn't she be more on the side of the frame? It would be prettier. I remember one moment in Ride, I had the best DP, Chas Shelton, and he was so great, and he set up one camera, and I was like, it should be prettier. And he was like, you're right. And he just moved the camera to the side. It was a big anamorphic thing. And I was like, yeah, that's better. And I don't know why. He probably knows why. What I could contribute is, this should look prettier. And so it did.
I was, of course, very intimidated to meet with Helen Hunt for the first time. I mean, this is like, Hollywood legend. She is one of the smartest filmmakers that I've ever met. She certainly had the expertise as a filmmaker and as a storyteller. And I'm not talking from acting to the photography to the production design. There's very little questioning or indecision. We spent an enormous amount of time in pre-production together, shot listed and storyboarded a pretty big portion of the movie, especially the water sequences, knowing that those are going to be a little more complicated and there'd be a lot of moving parts, and so that we would have a grasp of those scenes visually. We were going to be in the water. She wasn't going to be able to watch playback. The time we spent in pre-production preparing for those scenes really paid off.
I had a storyboard artist on both movies. That really helped. It's just a miracle to me. I can't draw at all. So I remember standing there with this little camcorder going, I think it would look like this, except she'd be lying down and I would look over my shoulder and the storyboard artist would be like that? Yes, exactly like that. So that really helps. It helps you begin to see the movie.
Oh my God.
Tiring, isn't it?
Can we take a break?
I think we actually talked about the idea of grounding the ocean scenes like in our first meeting. And I think it even went a step further. It was like whenever we're in the water, in the ocean, as much as possible, we want to feel the shoreline or the pier or give it some element to ground it to the land.
Boy, from this angle, it doesn't look so bad. I thought it was bigger.
when you're in the water, there's no sense of scale or space. But when you add that element of a landscape or a pier or something, all of a sudden, those, you know, you have a perspective that kind of defines the geography.
Sit up.
I think that in part is to facilitate those scenes, to ground them, but I think it was also to give contrast and separate the scene where she paddles out by herself at dawn. Because that scene, we did the opposite. We're like, let's shoot her against just a clear, pristine horizon line where you don't feel any landscape whatsoever. Certain days, we'd have to break stuff over a couple days, and she's such an incredibly solid actor that she was like, without missing a beat, was able to like, you know, come in and then, you know, she would come in and out of that character, but then also put on her directing hat and deal with directing things, put on her producing hat, put on her, and then jump back in front of camera. And I was just always amazed at how effortlessly she could switch gears. It was really shocking. I mean, to this day, I've never seen anybody able to do that.
Somebody said every day you're snatching the movie from ruins. Like, it's going to be ruined every day, and you usually rescue it just at the last minute. So yeah, 50,000 things can always go wrong. You know, people talk about directing classically as like the general leading us into battle. You see old Cecil B. DeMille in the khaki jacket and the bullhorn, follow me. So it's always had a very male, you know, that has a very male feel to it. Dad is going to lead us into battle, but I would make an argument that, you know, good mothering is a lot of what directing is. You know, you're prepared, you've thought ahead, you listen to what the kid wants. At the end of the day, you make the decision. You remind everybody it's going to be okay, even if you're not sure if it's going to be okay. Try to remember to enjoy it. Don't take it personally when this one's cranky and this one's frustrated and this one thinks you're doing a bad job. Like, I'm here to pilot the plane. And so I think those qualities have served me, have helped me enjoy directing. If you start directing other people's TV shows, you very quickly learn, oh, some people are going to like what I'm doing and some people are not going to like it. It's a very particular art form, particularly comedies. If it's not your show, at its worst, you're like a concierge. The showrunner is sitting behind you and he taps you on the shoulder and says, I want it with more salt. You go to the actors and go, we'd like it with more salt. And they do it. And then they says, that's too much. So that's too much. You're just like basically the messenger to get the showrunner show on the air, which is fine. And then the aspiration becomes, let the actors have fun and give this person what they want. On 1 hour shows, I've found there's more space often for real creativity. I'm sure there are directors out there who love, you know, think about these great movies with young Bicycle Thief or E.T., you know, to take a brand new young person who only knows a little about acting, if they know anything, and mold them. That is not my pleasure. My pleasure is to have Susan Sarandon or Jessica Lange or walk in with a lifetime of craft, and then now let's start playing. On Feud, I had, you know, these two brilliant actors, and the early part of that series was about whatever happened to Baby Jane. And then I came in later in the story when they're making this movie, Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte.
Dateline, Hollywood, California. Production on 20th Century Fox's lavish Gothic drama, Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte, continues despite rumblings that the back of a stand-in is doing the work of a star.
Action!
And I remember reading it and thinking, okay, the challenge is going to be, they're not going to want to, they're so smart, their instincts are going to be to not repeat what they did in the early episodes. What's different about this? But I'm sure having been on the other side and acted for so long, knowing what it's like to go 7 pages of dialogue and I'm tired, I have real empathy for that. I remember learning every scene is a love scene, just like every scene is The Odd Couple a little bit. How are they different? Every scene is also a love scene. And then I, thank God, ran to one of the writers and said, do they have a scene together in the last episode? Because I thought I remembered it was very different. It's some years have gone by, and one of them's in an apartment in Manhattan, right? And I was like, am I wrong about that? All I had done is read the outline of the last episode. He said, no. And I went, this is goodbye. They're saying goodbye. It's two people who, you call it a love story, whatever that means to you, they're never going to see each other again. So that gave them something to play.
I'm a character actress.
Well, I said what I came to say. I'm going to bed.
Joan. How did it feel to be the most beautiful girl in the world?
It was wonderful. The most joyous thing you could ever imagine, and it was never enough.
Susan was very concerned that this is like a redo of what we've done. And she went by me like a Hollywood movie in a golf cart. And as she went by me, I was walking. And she goes, can't wait to see what you've got in your bag of tricks for this one. I was like, shit. But I found something.
Well, what about you? How did it feel to be the most talented girl in the world?
Great. And it was never enough.
You know, I found something because I've been on a lot of sets and I've studied a lot and listened to smart people. That seemed to free us all up. I remember being really proud of that scene in the end. And in the first part of the day, we were all like, oh, how's it going to work? So that's why you do it, to go from this will never work to, I think maybe we did a little something.
Actors probably get into certain routines and it all becomes rote. And to have like a new voice and a new perspective to come in with and give a little twist, that's got to be pretty fantastic, I would imagine. So I'm always impressed that the directors are able to do that so fluidly. And, you know, I mean, I'm assuming that you, just like anything else, it's a skill that you probably develop. Like, you know, I mean, Helen's a good example. Helen's an incredible director, whether it's TV or film. And she probably just, I would imagine, modifies her approach slightly, you know, depending on the circumstances.
Every director has their own different energy and their different contribution. But certainly a sense of calm and confidence that you can inspire and instill in the other actors is a great gift. And Helen certainly does that.
I think doing lots of different things gives you experience. And that's one of the reasons I started directing episodic TV. I'm not one of those journeyman directors who just says, I got to direct something. I want to direct it if I love it, if I'm learning something, or if I have either authored the piece or feel a sense of authorship. If I want to tell the story. Because really, you know, when you write something, you write another draft and you write another draft, and then at some point you can't write any more drafts. But then directing becomes the next draft. Choosing what she's going to wear is a draft, is a contribution to a draft. What's the wallpaper going to be like? What actors are going to play it? That's kind of like writing the next draft. And then editing is your last chance at the rewrite. So a lot of the episodic work I've done is my desire to have more and more and more experience. For the Directors Guild, my father and I together did a symposium for episodic TV directors, and they got to ask us questions. And really the only advice I thought I could give to directors was get into an acting class. On the rare occasions that I work with a director who understands acting, they can give you the direction in a way that lights you up or frees you up or is doable, you know? So it is a great joy for me when I can give an actor a piece of direction and I see them have fun. I'm a big believer as a director to make an atmosphere where we can try stuff. I've many times given an actor a piece of direction and they've done it full out, and then I've said, that was a really bad idea, and they've said, yeah, it was. And so they begin to get, we're gonna be working. We're gonna be trying things. We're not going for the bullseye, because the bullseye doesn't exist. It's a human form. Actors are human people. And so I would like to think I make an atmosphere where we're trying things out. There are more women directing episodes of television. There's miles to go. There's fewer women of color directing television, even fewer still women with disabilities, right? So we have to keep chipping away at it. It happens very slowly, and it matters when people are brave and try something new.